congratulations, guys. It's not an easy job. I mean, we've all seen that poetry is not regularly published as regularly as it should be, and you're giving us a hard copy. And I think the first question that I'd really like to ask, Jerusha answered a little briefly about what she is as a new age writer, because one of the claims here is that this is new age writing. And very briefly, to the publisher, what do you mean by saying that you're a new age publisher?
What we mean by this is we are focusing on these up and coming authors who have newer ideas that are not based on telling stories thinking they will sell because they are showing Africa in a bad way to the rest of the world, maybe in the hope of getting sponsorship, funding from Western donors, or from attacking the government. So these new age authors, they are not into addressing colonialism things. They are not into addressing only the issues of how we are fighting amongst ourselves. Because we want also to have a light reading for entertainment, a light reading to pass time, and a light reading to make our lives a little bit easier. And that is coming from this new blood.
All right. Maybe one of the most interesting poems that I saw, which I think it speaks of my emotions, is actually called I Go Home. So I'll do a very quick reading. I Go Home by Vincent De Paul. I go home and make love to my wife, thinking of another wife in another life, who is not like her, but I go home to her. I tell all the others that I wish I had met them before I met my wife. A new meaning they give my life. Pillow talk with no meaning, but I go home to my wife. They are not mean. They get what I mean. Believe only they love me the way I deserve. My sanity they preserve, but I go home to my wife. I think you can see from the tone of that poem, it's nice, easy reading. It's not going to be, the way people used to run away from Wole Soyinka kind of clashes. And then my next question then will also go to the editor. Like, when you're going through this as an editor, what do you think your role is? Because one of the major questions most publishers have is the hostile kind of relationship between editors and poets and writers. Like, you're changing my story, you're forcing me, can't you feel my thing? This is the way I write. See, there are no, your new age, me, I'm the new, this is my new age, I spell like this, I put commas like this.
Okay, so to that question, as a proofreader or an editor, the main role is to make sure that the text that is being passed across is not vulgar in any way, because you do not know whether your reader will be either a child or an adult. So we are the gatekeepers. We make sure that the content that is getting to the public is good and is not vulgar, or is not going to make some people disappointed or feel like this text is vulgar in a way. So while going through this text, I loved it. It's friendly because there's nothing that is that vulgar when you read it. Okay, mystery publishers also does erotica. So erotica is not pornography. It's just something that you can know what it tells, but it does not border pornography. So according to this poem, I felt it's user-friendly. Yes.
Oh, okay. The difference between erotica and pornography is that there's no that call of, are you alone in the house? That kind of thing. Do not press play. All right. Yeah, there's lots of erotica here. I've seen a couple of, I don't know whether I call it erotica or love and romance, but there's one thing that he said before, that you're moving away from sort of heavy subject matter. And my question is, but there's a lot of heavy subject matter here. Is it in terms of moving from heavy subject matter written in a heavy style, or moving from heavy subject matter, or using the same heavy subject matter but writing it in simple, easy ways, Jerusha?
Yeah, I saw that question coming. When we talk about we can't run away from heavy subjects, even criticizing the government, you cannot run away from that. But I think the question lies on the how. Not like a crying baby, but adopting a side that will appeal, that's totally different, that you're not only complaining but also seeking what is your role, what's your contribution in it. Not crying baby. When you look at some of the points there, of course we cannot keep away from politics as well, but we are saying that if we approach politics, then let's do it in a way that the present generation will approach it, will understand it differently. So it's not running away from heavy subjects, it's the how. Telling the stories of the heavy subjects, but now in a different way to appeal to different people.
All right, that's really interesting because we all know about, Vincent said that we are not going to be dealing with heavy issues of colonialism, racism, and all those kind of things, but they're still relevant to this world today. And I'd like to bring, the Millennium SDG goals, the social development goals that were given by the UNDP. And the reason I asked you these questions is because I read something here from your poem. Maybe I can just give a verse. The shepherd wolves are drunk with power, soggy, soaked in blood, vampire leaders, bloodthirsty to eliminate others. They have done it again. They have raped our bleeding country. Oh, my bleeding country. Oh, my weeping motherland. That's from Weep, Bleeding Mother. I'm just giving teasers of it. And I was like, this is talking about justice. This is talk about having strong institutions in this country. And there's also another poem by, I think, And I'm like, is the new age writer, poet, by pretending that they are running away from heavy topics, creating a bleak, or are you guys pessimistic? Because there's almost no hope in this kind of poems.
It's telling the truth.
It's telling the truth? All right, so yeah, now we've got a social development and justice issue. I want to go to the education issue, and this one will go to Vincent. You are the publisher, and there's a poem here by the poem Not All Who Win Are Lost by Kosgei Marion. And I'm like, I'm reading it, it's looking nice and easy, but when I read it the second time, I'm like, she's really talking about the culture and the education. And did I read wrong, or is it something that you guys also saw when you're publishing this and you're looking out for?
No, you did not read it wrong. When we did the first reading, yes, it came out the way it came out for you, but now on closer look, you realize, yes, there is this aspect of UNSDG that is coming out, the education. It is, as Jerusha said, it is how we are addressing these issues. We might appear like we are running away, but this current generation, they are into conspiracy theories. Where is the government lying to us? If you start going to the activism way, you are not going to be with them. When you look at this, yes, it is talking about education, culture, and equal opportunities for all. But it is through the challenges that this Saharan girl the girl from the savannah, she is going through that shows. Let her go out. Let her be empowered, be enlightened. She will never go anywhere else. She will still come back home. And that is the subtext of this point. Let's not keep girls or our women away from this enlightenment. Let them go like free birds. They will still come back home. Because home, wherever, east or west, it is always where we all go back.
All right, okay, good. And again, they said they're targeting the new age writers, young generation, fresh ideas, fresh blood. And there's a poem, Vision 2070, by Gideon. Yes, please.
I think I need to say something about the poem by Mariam. I know you are looking for hope. We talked about pessimism and you are looking for hope.
Yeah.
I think there's hope here. If you look at that line, I think the fourth stanza of the poem, you rise one morning, this time not to shower as the cows you've met, but to meet the sun that will have risen on your dreams. So there is hope about this Savannah girl.
Oh, yeah.
So education, attacking the issue of education and the challenges of this girl, but still giving hope. And you realize that reading it the first time, you will not see the how until you look for the how. You see that this education is also telling of today, yesterday, and tomorrow. Yesterday they were urinating, showering, but there is the sun that is promising. So not everything is pessimism, there is hope, but sometimes you have to really to seek this hope.
Yeah, I think the same can be said about Anthony Chukwu's poem. It's also more cultural education, but giving it on a different slant. I think, going back to my strand of the young people, I think economic viability, economic success, just being able to get by and having dreams for the future is something that is really important to the new age generation. And even as we talk of Afrofuturism in terms of having visions of the future, that future is kind of pegged on the now. That's why we're having, look at the current African scenario where it's the young people who are really seeking to have, clarification about the space that they are in economically and what options they have. And I think it's Mutai. Yes. Mutai's Vision 2070. It has a refrain that, let me see if I've gotten the refrain right. It has a refrain that keeps on saying, a time is coming for Africa, and soon it will be without delay. So he keeps on using this refrain in every stanza that he has. A time is coming for Africa, and soon it will be without delay. And I'm like, well, Vision 2070, that's many years ago to come. Is there Afrofuturism? You're talking about like a dreamy future that has yet to come, or it's a rally call for guys to start working now, start finding their positions now in order to reclaim this African future without, the problems that we kind of have. I'll throw that one to Vincent and then to the editor.
Yes, it is twofold. One is, when we look at the current generation, we have been complaining Generation Z, a Tupagwini generation, who are very lazy, who want microwave life. However, it is a call up to them, a radical call up to them, to wake up. This continent will be taken where we want by a working nation, not a lazy one. Not guys who are always after sugar mummies who are going to feed them, sugar daddies who are going to feed them. What kind of future are we preparing for our generations 50 years from now? And that is what Gideon Mutai has identified now. We have free trade area with dynamic education system. This dynamic education system is now, that is what we are dreaming of. Because in the end, once we are united as one continent, we can conquer the world. Look at the West. The first thing they did is to conquer our gods. We worship a white god, a European god, or a foreign god. What happened to our African gods? But if we develop this education system and show that Africa, we have our potential, that vision can be visualized. So this approach by Gideon is this twofold. A radical change we are calling upon, and also a dreaming vision for Africa, whereby it will not be an euphoria, but it will be a better state if we work towards it.
If we work towards it, and I think that's the key word, right? That there's working towards it through poetry, and there's also the practical work. Both ways are working towards it, and I'm glad that you're actually working towards it by reminding us through words, capturing the anthology. Maritim?
So to add to what Vincent has said, this is like a message of hope to the young generation. that the future will be better. From the poem, Gideon says that he touches on issues of leadership, on trade, on the academic system, and it's like a ray of hope to the young generation that the future is going to be better in terms of trade, in terms of education, and life generally. So I feel that this poem was more of like giving a ray of hope to the young generation.
All right. Because we'll start to tread on Dennis's time in a few seconds. Maybe I'll just give Jerusha the chance to say, what's your process as a poet, and what would you like to share with aspiring poets like you?
Thank you very much. My journey as a poet has been amazing. Initially, but I kept writing. I started writing a long time ago, and I kept writing until I approached a number of publishers. They did not work. Then I met mystery publishers. There is the whole idea of standards, and that's one thing I think mystery publishers are still because of time. There is no shortcut. If your work is not fine, and I think sometimes those who go for standards will not be receive as much accolades as those. It's not about the number of books. So my process was tough because there were a lot of things I had to meet, and for someone a new poet who is coming in thinking that they just want their work out. There's a way you write, someone tell you that, everyone writes this work is good. And when you go out there, you go with, ego, feeling that when someone tells you to do this, you say, no, but it's good, it's there. I think you should be ready to work and to meet tough people like Vincent, and they start telling you, scrapping, your entire work. And it's not easy, but it's doable. What you need is, first of all, humility. You need to be humble because you need to be humble. Keep writing and then go to the right people. Don't be discouraged because you will be asked so many things. Even my second poetry anthology, until I also spoke to them in my second oral poetry when I was doing it. So I think humble yourself, approach right people, and for me, I think mystery publishers came to my head. So.
All right, yeah. So for the poets who are aspiring to be published, and the writers who might approach mystery publishers, yeah, be humble, get your work done, and be ready for some tough love.